I hope that you're just doing whatever it is you need to do to make sure that you are getting what you need in this year, speaking to the people that you need to, making sure that you're articulating your value and quantifying your worth. That's so important because you do such good work. We don't want you just to wait on somebody to tap you on the shoulder. Let people know what you need and how they can help you. And so I'm so excited for today's episode because we are going to have an important conversation. Many of us that watch the show do identify as women of color, but I know that we have our allies and other leaders and those who sit at the margins joining us on the show, and we appreciate how you show up and join the community as well. But one of the things that we haven't talked a lot about is that shared sisterhood, which I think is so important as we think about just moving forward and how the workplace can work for everybody. And a friend of mine that we've connected on the internet's, like many of us, and then we had the opportunity to meet each other recently, Dr. Tina Opie, who is a professor, she's a facilitator, she's a speaker, she's phenomenal, and she has a new book coming out next month called Shared Sisterhood, which will make sure that we drop all the information in the chat. It's on pre-order right now, and you all are no stranger to how I feel about pre-orders, which are so important. So make sure that you connect. And I think that each of us need this book in our toolkit. So I want to make sure that you know where to get it. You can purchase it at your local bookstores, Black-owned bookstores, women-owned bookstores, and wherever you like to buy your books. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring Dr. Tina up to the stage so we can have a good old conversation. Hey, Dr. Tina, how are you?
Hi, Megan. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. We have some mutual friends. Shout out to Alex Carter and Denise Hamilton.
Yes. Shout out. Stephanie Cleary, maybe. Yep.
Yes. We'll all have to have a shared sisterhood conversation in the next few months, and I'm sure we will. I know we've all been sharing stages in the past, but congratulations on the upcoming book.
Thank you so much, Menta. It's a work of love, publishing a book. I know you can relate to that too.
Trust me, I know. I have the paperback version of Right Within coming out on October 18th, and I'm getting ready to go on a physical book tour for that one. And it's, I haven't been out on the road since the memo in that way. And so I'm also like, oh, what does that feel like again?
Congratulations. And you know what? I really want to thank you. I know this is what this conversation was about, but I really appreciate you taking the pain that so many of us experience at work and actually putting it in writing and then putting it into the masses for people who are not people of color so that they can understand what's going on and they can fix themselves. And then also so that we as a community can see what other Black women and other women of color are experiencing to know that we're not alone. It really, I listened to you on audio. On the book on tape, and when I was walking, and sometimes I was walking really fast because I was furious. But I wanted to thank you because many people have the trauma, not a lot of people put it to work.
That means so much. I respect the work that you do, and thank you for seeing me and supporting me. It means so much. And for those who may not be familiar with your work, tell us a little bit more about you.
Yes, so I am a tenured professor at Babson College. And actually, I'm on unpaid leave now, deciding what inflection point or what trajectory I take. I'm also the chief vision officer at Opie Consulting Group, where I do consulting. And like many people, the summer of reckoning, Black Lives Matter, the murder of George Floyd, my phone blew up and organizations were calling me panicked because they didn't know what to do. And so I got into consulting and public speaking. I've done a TEDx talk. And really what I try to do is help people see our full humanity and then also figure out how we can link arms and do this work together. Because I say, racism was created by white people and white people are going to have to be involved in dismantling it.
Point blank, period.
Exactly.
There's no cliff notes to that. There's no paragraph synopsis. It is what it is. And so tell everybody just really quick before we jump into our conversation, the full name of your book and the release date so that people can, follow you. I'm sure you'll be doing talks during book launch week and all that good stuff.
Yes. So with my co-author, Beth Livingston, we've written a book called Shared Sisterhood, How to Take Collective Action for Racial and Gender Equity at Work. So that's the full title. The book is coming out on October 11th from Harvard Business Review Press.
We love to see it. And so I'm excited for this book. It's needed in so many ways. And so I'm glad that you were both able to have this experience and write that together. And the first question I have for you, in Shared Sisterhood, you share the challenges that you both faced in trying to connect. Can you share a story with our audience on how the book came together? Because I'm sure a lot of people are like,
yeah.
well, tell us how this happened. I don't want to share no sisterhood with no.
We'll say what's interesting is I've been working on or thinking about Shared Sisterhood for about 15 years. And I first heard the term in a workshop, and I was asked to develop it. And so I started writing this paper, and this is my fourth career as an entrepreneur. So I was a banker, then I was a consultant, a professor, and now an entrepreneur. And in all of those domains, I would look around and wonder, if feminism is true, why isn't there more solidarity at work? And my husband is a history professor, so I started reading books on the history of the workforce. And basically, the common theme was there's a lack of trust. There's a lack of knowing. And so fast forward to, 2018, 2019, when Beth and I started writing the book, we laughed because when she first introduced herself to me, I say she came skipping up to me at a conference, and I didn't know her. And so I was pleasant, but I was hesitant because I hate to say it, the academy can be cutthroat, where people will take your ideas or take credit for your ideas. You've probably heard about it. It happens everywhere. And so I was pleasant but distant, but she turned out to know a Black woman who I knew and trusted named Dr. Charlotte Hurst, and she could vouch for Beth. So then I started to trust her, and we had worked on some other work, and I couldn't get the Shared Sisterhood manuscript together. So it was shelved. And then I said, wait a minute. Maybe the issue is if I'm going to write a book about Shared Sisterhood, I need to write it in sisterhood. So I reached out to Beth, and she said, absolutely, let's write it. And so that's how it started with her and I. But I trust her. I mean, there were incremental tests beforehand, before the big ask, because I wanted to make sure, honestly, that she wasn't trifling. She's not. Sorry, I'm so but that's what I was thinking, because it would have been pretty bad to try to write a book with someone on sisterhood and then have a big blow up or something. But Beth is great.
Oh, well, I love that, because let's be honest, many of us have been burned
Yes.
by white women, by women that look like us, all the
Yes.
women. Okay.
Yeah. One of my worst bosses was a Black woman. But I think that's because she was trying to appeal to the white power structure. And one of the ways to do that was to minimize me, I think.
Yes, and that may be another book that you decide to write, but it's in the future. But I think it's so important as we talk about allyship and trust in the workplace and restorative justice. We have to talk about the shared sisterhood and how do we get to a sisterhood, right? It doesn't just happen because we snap our fingers.
That's right. It's work. It's true work, and trust is the underpinning attribute under all of it.
Absolutely. It's funny, you don't know this, we haven't talked about it, but trust has been as I'm mulling on what my next book will be, I've really been thinking about just trust and what that really means in the workplace. And you can't do anything without it, right? And so I'm glad that you're exploring what that looks like with allyship, because I think some white women, they want to pull up and be an ally, but they haven't built the trust, right? Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's they haven't built the trust with me, but also I don't even think they know what's up with themselves. And so I talk about dig, bridge, and collective action as these three discrete steps. And dig is about understanding your own assumptions about things like race and gender. And what we like to say in Shared Sisterhood is that we're not entering these conversations in the workplace at the same place. Most of the Black people that I know learned about being Black at a very, very young age. And, positively from their parents and their community, hopefully, but also negatively. I have the story of when I got into the pool and all the little white kids got out, and my parents had to explain what was going on to me. That was when I was in elementary school. In contrast, while Beth had heard about race, she didn't really dig into the power dynamics of it until she was in college. So fast forward to when you're 23, 24, maybe in your first professional job, you have somebody, me, a Black woman, who's been contending with this for over a decade or more, compared to someone who just may have talked about it last year. dig is essential, because unfortunately, when I've had white women try to bridge or connect with me, they can do harm. They do things like, do you wash your hair every day? Or what is this around the edges? And I've published research on hair, for hair and professionalism. And I was prompted to do that because of some of those, I mean, honestly, ignorant conversations. And they may not mean harm, but they still do harm. And that was really important. So dig, understanding your own assumptions is important. And bridge is about then connecting with people authentically across difference. And by authentic, we're saying it's a relationship based on trust, on empathy, on risk taking, and vulnerability. And trust is sort of the queen element, because without trust, you really can't establish the others. So that's bridge. And then collective action is, once you've done dig and bridge, we can link arms together and we can actually start looking at systems and making sure that we get rid of bias, get rid of racism, sexism, all those things.
I love that so much. I have to get my tambourine.
I knew about the tambourine. Yay!
It's a moment, because you can't have trust without dig, bridge, and the collective action. And I'm glad that you talk about that step. And I think, for our, viewers that are not people of color, I think it's important that you understand how we get to these points. And you can't just jump into it. You definitely got to dig, and you have to own this stuff before. And so I'm so glad that you and Beth provide this almost like a roadmap to how we can get some things to consider on the way as we're rebuilding some of these relationships.
Absolutely.
I love that. And we're going to put on the screen, so you can go ahead and pre-order right now, Shared Sisterhood, get it in your collection. And, I'm just going to put it out there. A lot of your companies have book clubs in the women's ERG. I believe that you should be ordering this book, and let's get everybody to read the book together, because, a lot of people, reach out to me. What should we do next? What are the next steps? We need to have the conversation together. Let's read it. Let's explore. Let's dig. Let's bridge. Let's do that collective action. Would you agree, Dr. Tina?
Thank you for that. Yes, Manda. I mean, don't just talk about it, be about it. And I think in so many organizations, I mean, that's part of what motivated us to write this book, is when people would say, well, we want a more inclusive organization. Where exactly do you start? How do you build that? And we've gotten some pushback on the book, because people will say, well, we don't really need to think about hearts and minds. It's like, just make a law. And I said, well, okay, it could be both and, because what would it look like if legally people were required to be more inclusive, but also we could actually break down those stereotypes, those assumptions, those systems, so that people really in their hearts and minds believed it. Hearts and minds plus legal must outperform just legal or hearts and minds alone.
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to have this church that I used to go to in New York City, and the pastor would always say, it's heart modification. He wasn't talking about race, but I think about it in that way, because yes, it is about the heart and the mind at the job, because a lot of what we have subconsciously or consciously adhered to, or how we move and operate in the workplace, is because of what's in our mind. And maybe you had an experience. I remember this one lady told me that she was always having this issue with this white manager. And one day she said, what is the deal with you? You're just always like, eh, eh, eh. And he's like, well, if I'm being honest, when I was younger, my dad got robbed by a black guy. And I've always had this like,
whoa.
Right. And it's like, so yes, it is a heart and mind situation.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, so what I think is important is it's so much more difficult for people to comprehend how to address the heart and mind. But if you're honest, I mean, our hearts and minds are what led to the laws that we have. I mean, there's a reason why certain laws, I mean, I don't want to get into some controversial things that just happened and were overturned, but that's because of people's hearts and minds. And so I really love what you said. It's not about, when you were talking about your pastor, I'm a Christian also. I'm also a believer. And when you become a new creature, you have to cleanse your heart. You have to cleanse your mind. And then the laws, that's not even the difficult part. It's more you're addressing the deeper issues that are connected to your heart and mind. So I love to hear that comparison. That really resonates with me.
Yeah, thank you for that. And again, thank you to you and Beth for writing this book, because it's so needed, not just for white women, for all of us, because as you mentioned, there's a lot of hurts and pains that we have in side-eyeing that we're doing women, because we also need to do some digging too. And I want to reflect on this about the book. In the book, you share several different kinds of supporters. As many of us know, we know the ally, accomplice, and maybe co-conspirator. But can you share a definition for each? Because I think a lot of people hear these words, but they don't often understand how they're defined and why a co-conspirator is the best proactively to understand how to best dismantle these systems of inequality.
Yes. So ally, accomplice, and co-conspirator. And the first thing I want to do is give credit to the women who I first heard the terms from, Dr. Tiffany Jana, and then Dr. Ella Bell and Dr. Stella Nkomo. Bell and Nkomo have a book called Our Separate Ways. And if you've probably heard of it, but if your audience isn't familiar with it, it's what really motivated me. I won't get into that right now. So an ally is someone who believes in equity in theory. They think it's a good idea. Those were the people who ran out during the summer of 2020 and they bought all those books, and they may have had a book club and they posted themselves holding the book. That's an ally. When it comes to risk, though, a lot of those people did not actually do what was in those books. They read it. They had the information, but they didn't necessarily apply it. An accomplice is someone who also believes in equity, but is willing to take a risk. But the risk is driven by their own determination of what's necessary. And so the example I give is, let's say that there is an accomplice who's interested in advancing women's rights. They may say, women, you need to go on strike. But the women may say, wait a minute, that's not what we want. That's an accomplice. They would still go out and they would push for that because that's what they think is necessary. The third and the premier level is a co-conspirator. And that's someone who believes in equity, who will take risk. And those risks are informed by the voices of the historically marginalized people that they're helping. That is the difference. And the reason why it's important is because, I talk about Black women specifically. As a Black woman, I don't feel that it's my job to educate every single person. But when you're making major strategic decisions about the future of a company or of a society that's going to affect me, then you should listen to our voices. We need to have, as you say, a seat at the table and be helping to direct it. And then you need to take that as someone with social and political capital, go into your networks where I may not have access to, and advocate for what I have asked for, what we have said that we want. That's a co-conspirator. And I think once helping people move from ally to accomplice to co-conspirator, we do that in shared sisterhood. And then we show you, once you're a co-conspirator, how to apply that in the workplace to actually start dismantling inequity.
I love that so much. And I feel like some of us do need to move through those fears, right? And I hope that at the end of the day, we can all have enough courage to be co-conspirators, because that's what we need to break down these cycles. Dr. Tina, I know this wasn't part of the question flow, but I have to ask, for those who are watching us live, those who are going to watch the replay, who is this book for? Who should be reading it? And I know we have men watching, so is this book for them too? Let's just put it out there for all the people who are wondering about the book.
Thank you for that question, Minda. And the answer is, anyone can be a sister regardless of gender. So if you are breathing, Shared Sisterhood is for you. Anyone can be a co-conspirator. Anyone can be a sister. So the book is for any and everyone. And actually what's interesting is I've had some very interesting sort of discussions with white men in particular about this book. I've also my husband's a Black man, talked about it with some Black men, because there are so many people who want to join in and help. They just may not have the toolkit. And this is something that can help you accomplish that.
I love that so much. We're going to drop it in the chat where you can pick up the book. Listen, read it, share it. This is an opportunity for you to even have a conversation. Listen, I think what I'm going to do with this book is, I have a lot of girlfriends who don't look like me. And I think that this would be a good opportunity for us to read the book together and have a conversation, because a lot of the things, Dr. Tina, when I think about my former life in the workplace, I have all these, my white friends, work friends at work, and they'd come to me behind the scenes, be like, oh, I can't believe so-and-so said that and did that and all these different things. And I know in their minds, they felt like they were being helpful. they felt like they were being trusted, but it was actually constantly dismantling and creating more distrust every time they did it. But they, to your point, they meant well, but the impact was harmful. And I think that oftentimes part of the lack of self-awareness and emotional intelligence is not understanding that dig piece that you said.
Yeah, I mean, and I talk about that so much, where I say, please don't let something happen to me publicly and then you privately address it. And I tell my clients this: if you publicly screw up, you need to publicly apologize and make amends and restore justice. And restorative justice is where the person who is harmed sets the table. They say, this is what I need to feel whole. And then the perpetrator yields or submits to that. It's not where you get to say, well, I'm sorry, like with some of the diamonds that were stolen from African countries, from different countries. Oh, well, we're not going to give you back the diamonds, but we're really sorry for that. Nah, that's not restorative justice.
At all.
It's not restorative. It just, what it does is it makes your conscience feel better, but it does nothing to make the harmed community whole. And we have got to, you know, we're not going to talk about it, but I like to say politeness, decorum, etiquette, all those labels, it's sort of like you're expecting someone to gently ask an oppressor to lift their foot off of their neck. No, we are at a time, I hope we're at an inflection point where we can voice more of this. And I'm more than halfway through my life. I'm 51, who knows? But at this point, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to die having the same conversation. We have got to move things forward. I don't want our children and our children's children to be dealing with the same issues that we're talking about.
That part. There has to be some evolution in this situation. Yeah. And thank you for the work that you're doing so that we can, you know, we're out here doing this work because we want to see it. We want to make this planet, this world, this country better than we found it. And people like you who are doing that good work. So thank you. It's not easy for those who, you know, I have a lot of people who slide in my boxes and they'll be like, oh, Minda, I just love the life. I wish I could do the things that I'm like, yes, and right.
It's a commitment. It's a commitment.
It's a lot of work and everything isn't always fanfare. You know, like recently, you've seen a lot of those of doing the work, you know, had some criticisms around the Queen passing, and a lot of them are getting dinged. Their checks are being pulled. Because they're speaking about the same thing that we've been speaking about for the last couple of years, but because it's being spoken about in a way that you're not comfortable with, now people are the bad guys, right?
Yeah, it's so funny. I just started writing a piece because I heard about I think his last name is Sinclair, or Trevor Sinclair, or Tony Sinclair. He's a British, I think, sportscaster. And he basically had to go off of social media because he said that Black and brown people shouldn't be mourning because of imperialism and colonialism. And there's Gina Yashere is a comedian, and she posted something, and I saw this person say, well, now is not the time. You need to express humanity. And that's honestly what made me think about what I said with the foot on the neck. So we can be raped, pillaged, murdered, burned, oppressed, enslaved. And there's a particular sort of symbol of that, and not just a symbol, but in actuality, someone in a family who was behind that. And are we hard-hearted? The exact opposite. But you are expressing us to be less than human. It's dehumanizing to us to expect us not to have emotional reactions when someone who symbolically and literally represents oppression passes away. Now, I felt bad. Did I watch when Meghan Markle got married? Yes, I did. So, you know, I have a mixed relationship, but I think it's important. Those people, it's not easy. I've had hate mail. It is not a joke. I'm envisioning that there may be death threats. You may have experienced some of these things too, Minda, and it's not easy. It can be scary, but you know, I would rather keep pushing than lay down.
Yes, that part. And this is where, you know, our allies watching, thinking about how you can be a co-conspirator in these times when these things happen and you're seeing Black thought leaders and creators being, you know, bashed for I often say two things can be true at the same time, right?
Yes.
Like we can watch the weddings and we can still feel like, wow, look at the history,
yes,
of work. And yes, also thoughts and prayers. It can be all of these things.
It can be all. We're complex human beings. I mean, the bottom line is I have mixed emotions about myself sometimes. I mean, I'm like, girl, now you had a goal. Why did you eat half of that cake? So I can get upset with myself, or you overdid it then, or I'm frustrated that you said that. We have complex relationships with ourselves. Of course, we're going to have complex histories with things like oppression and history. I mean, how dare we demand that an entire group of people respond in a way that comports with our definition of politeness? It's the same thing that people have done with professionalism and fit. Those kinds of terms are actually, they can represent violence. They really can.
Absolutely. And that's why I love your book, Shared Sisterhood, because I think some of us have been burned by other women. Whenever I hear women say, I don't deal with other women, I don't befriend other women. And I often take pause to say, I hope that that's not the way that you want to live the rest of your life, because we do need each other, right? But the complexities. And so again, thank you for writing Shared Sisterhood, because I think it provides healing, not just for the relationships that may have never been or have been soured, but then also to restore some justice within ourselves, and how we can also see and think about what we need out of the shared sisterhood, who we can allow in our space. And so any final thoughts on the book for that we haven't covered that you just want to make sure that we get out to the audience?
Yeah, I want to say something to the Black women and women of color. If I had not done dig work, I would have missed out on an amazing personal relationship and professional relationship with Dr. Beth Livingston. And so dig is very much about us. I would like to say, Minda, I think you have done one of the best jobs of crystallizing and synthesizing the trauma that Black women experience. It's really important that we dig into that and understand how it's affecting how we navigate in the workplace, recognizing two things. One, some of those reactions are adaptive because the workplace is harmful. So I am not saying stop defending yourself, stop protecting yourself. That's ignorant. That would be cruel, given that the harm is still occurring in the workplace. That's the first thing. The second thing is, though, if and when you can, and you see people, white women or white men, who demonstrate that they want to be trustworthy, who are trying to get better, those can be some of our best co-conspiratorial partners to dismantle systemic inequities. And we need them to actually do the collective action. So I would really encourage, I want us to look at ourselves, and definitely white folks, men, heterosexual people, Christian people, people from what I call power dominant groups, please listen a lot more than you talk when you do the bridge process.
I love that. And I just want to remind people what that 3 process is. Again, dig, bridge, and collective action. It's so important. Again, we're going to put it on the screen where to get the book. Dr. Tina, are you doing any book tours or anything that people need to be aware of, or where they can find out more information about how to connect?
Yes, if you all go to drtinaopie.com, you can see upcoming events. I just did a TEDx talk, as I mentioned, in Reno, which I'm going to start talking about. I haven't really talked about it in the past, but I want to start talking about that. But my website is a great place to find out where I'll be.
Awesome, and congratulations on the TED Talk. I can't wait to watch that. And again, thank you for the work that you're doing. You're helping so many more people. I know you're gonna, like you said, you'll have the haters and the unbelievers, but it's the who want to dig, who want to bridge, and want that collective action. Because, like you said, if I would have never even birthed the books that I birthed if I just sat in my trauma and said, you know what, I've had some of the worst pain in my life at the hands of white women in the workplace, but I've also had some of the most beautiful relationships that I've ever had with some white men and women, and so I'm able to say that that's not everyone. Just like if people have bad experiences with a Black woman, or whatever have you, that doesn't make it every experience is going to be that way. So I think it's very important for us to do that healing work so that we can open ourselves up to those who can go with us and do this journey together.
Minda, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's, this is working. We've used it in organizations already. And a recent Harvard Business Review article came out where at least a dozen companies have used it to great effect. So try it. It's working at the end for individuals and for organizations.
We love to see it. And we're at just about at time, but I want to ask you my bonus questions. And as you know, I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics. Dr. Tina, how do you like to have your grits?
Please listen, salt and butter. Some pepper, and if it's extra fancy, my mother has thrown some cheese in there, but they're savory. So to me, grits with sugar, I know people eat it that way. I'm sorry. I'm like, can you just eat cream of wheat? It's like eat that, or oatmeal, but grits for me, savory.
Thank you. And that's my own tambourine moment, because I just don't, what other way? Why are we toxicking up the grits with sugar? We just keep it where it's supposed to be. Thank you. That warms my heart. We officially have a shared sisterhood, and I thank you for that. But
yes.
Along with a good bowl of grits is a rap lyric. Tell us what one of your favorite rap lyrics are and why.
So I wanted to be a rapper, but I didn't think I could, I didn't have a skill. So Queen Latifah, ladies first. A woman can bear you, break you, take you. Now it's time to rhyme. Can you relate to a sister dope enough to make it holler and scream? I love that, because for me, when I was coming, it's old school lyrics. I have newer lyrics that I like too, but that for me was foundational because it really opened up my eyes that there were women doing this. And plus, she did it in Sisterhood with Moni Love, who was from Britain. When I heard Moni Love speak the first time, I was like, what? That is by far, every time that song comes on, I'm trying to rap again.
I love it. And you know what? You said you've had a few different careers, so we don't know what the future might hold.
That's right. You're right.
We might have to get, a DEI compilation mixtape out in these streets. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Are you gonna rap? What are you gonna rap, Menza? What you gonna rap?
I don't even want to talk about it, but I do like to spit some bars every now and then. So we might have to do it. That might be Secure the Seat After Dark. We might have to do a concert.
Look, and I used to do stand-up comedy in college, so we could do comedy and rap.
Say less, Dr. Tina. I think we have some next career paths for us. I love it.
So much fun. This is so much fun, Menza. Thank you.
Oh, you're such a pleasure. One last question. Everybody watching is a leader. They don't need their manager to give them a performance review or give some title after the email signature. We all can be leaders right now. What's one thing each person can do to make the workplace better than they found it?
I would say amplify the work of other people. So when you're in a meeting, if you see someone who has contributed an idea, somebody else takes credit for it or no one gives them credit, say, hey, Minda, you know what? I loved your idea on salt with grits. That was phenomenal. And then I can say, Minda, I agree. Jeff, I agree. Minda's idea on salt with grits was amazing. So amplification is something that I think every leader can role model, because it's a really simple way where you can actually affect the entire culture at an organization.
I love that so much. Amplification. It's been such a pleasure. I can talk to you all day, Dr. Tina, but I'm so excited for Shared Sisterhood, which is out in a couple weeks. We're putting it back on the screen and dropping it in the chat. So make sure you pre-order, call your local library, make sure that they have it too, so that others can access that. And again, congratulations to you and Beth. And I know it's probably already changing lives, but I know that once it gets in the hands of to the masses, once it's on release, that it's going to be just phenomenal. So I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much, Minda.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Wow, that was such a great episode. And I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes we just have to have these conversations about the sisterhood. And it's very important that even if you've been harmed or hurt, that there is restoration. And so Dr. Tina has given us the tools. So make sure that you pick up Shared Sisterhood. I'm really excited about that book because we need more of that. I know even for myself, I write for everybody, but I highlight the experiences of women of color, Black and brown women. But I invite other people to read those books. But this is one we can actually read together. And I think it's so important. So it's the end of the month. I'm going to bring Mike up for our affirmation to close us out. Hey, Mike, how are you?
What's up, Minda?
A great episode, right? Are you a sister? Like,
I think everybody can benefit from that upcoming book. I think everybody can learn something. I like when Dr. Tina said that this book is for everyone. And I think if we sit down and try to listen more and stop talking over each other, we'll be fine. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Listening, a lot of people talk about self-advocacy, but part of that is also being a courageous listener, because sometimes we don't want to hear what somebody has to say, but it's hearing them out. Hearing somebody out makes them feel seen, right? You may not understand it. You may not share the same lived experience, but hearing somebody gives perspective, right? Not thinking about what you're going to say in the next breath, but just hearing is a leadership quality that I hope many of us will lean into. But we're closing out September, Mike. Take us home.
Yep. As everyone knows, our September affirmation is everything is working in our favor. Everything is working in my favor. Last week, we were talking about some of the powers of affirmations, why we use them, why everything is working in our favor. And I want to share that so many negative thoughts come in our head that we act upon and we live upon, and our fear becomes our dominant thoughts, and our fear begins to multiply over and over. And imagine if you use these affirmations and you use them to your benefit, and you actually believe the affirmations. There's one thing you can do. You can say affirmations, you can feel affirmations, but believing the affirmations. And if we put just as much energy as we do and to negative things, we love to believe if bad news happens. There's literally people who get a thrill and a kick out. Did you see when somebody died? Did you see somebody has a illness? Did you hear about the latest outbreak? Right, news stations thrive off. We don't talk about the buses running on time. There was no plane crashes. COVID levels they used to be here, but now they're down here. Gas prices are down 59 cents in my state. We don't talk about anything good anymore. We're obsessed with everything that's going wrong. And we have to, live in a reality. We have to understand that everything's not all rosy and peachy. I understand that. But there has to be, at some point, some time for some positivity in our life. We have to make room for something good. If we make room for everything bad and we're just getting through our Mondays and we're just kind of hanging out and just living, that's fine. That's a reality. We all go through things. We're not asking you to wish away life, and when bad things are happening, just begin to lie to yourself. I'm not saying that, but we have to make room to stay phrased.
Absolutely, Mike. We have to make room for the good. And so I know that we had a little freeze there, but listen, we're at the end of the month. Make room for the good. Mike has been talking about it all month, about how just our mindset shift. And so I hope you also go to mikeharsh.com and pick up his affirmations, because we have to, those weeds in our minds, we have to kill those so that we can make room for the good. And so thank you again for joining us for another episode of Secure the Seat Live. Keep securing your seat, and we'll see you next week.